Welcome to Think and Believe Live 2015. We are ready to bring the Think and Believe Live crew to the stage. Tim McMurtry, the Purpose Coach. Tina Boyle-Whyte, the Transformation Coach. And finally, the man with the vision for this great event, Nicholas Dillon, the Believe Coach, founder and CEO of Believe University.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Think and Believe Live 2015. Give yourselves a hand for coming out tonight. We are delighted that you all took the time out of your balmy Thursday evening to join us here tonight. Sun is shining, you could be doing some other things, but I'm glad you're here on tonight. I also want to take this time to welcome our international friends from around the world as we are streaming live. We have friends in Jamaica, Grenada, the UK, and also around the US, including Atlanta, Chicago, DC, St. Louis. Am I missing anything?
New York City.
New York City. Excuse me, New York. New York City.
New York is in the house.
So you all are part of history. This is the first time in the 4-year history of Think and Believe Live that we have an international audience. So when you leave and people ask, well, how was it? You can say, I'm international, okay? So we like to get things started by having everyone just kind of be on one accord. Some folks, this might be your first time here, so you're kind of like, okay, I don't know what to expect, so we like to do a little icebreaker. So turn to the person next to you and say, hey, neighbor, I don't bite. So you can relax tonight. Okay, that's cool. Last piece, now be out of your hair. Some people ask, well, what is this Think and Believe Live thing? I've seen some of the social media, I've heard about it, bits and pieces, Think and Believe. What exactly is it? Well, Think and Believe Live, the brainchild of our very own Nick Dillon, simply put is this. It's an atmosphere where dreamers can have a place where they can have ambitions, dreams, initiatives, fueled and encouraged. Simple as that. Doesn't matter if it's a career situation, a relationship situation, a personal development situation. Many people have things on the inside of them that they want to achieve. They just don't have anybody blowing wind behind their sails. Think and Believe Live attempts to create an atmosphere for that. So you're in a safe place. If you're in a place of transition in your life, you're in the right place here. One last piece. I heard a guy say one time that he was asking a crowd of people similar to this. He said, where does the most talent reside? And some people kind of, begin to think and rack their brains and thought about some of the things they've heard in the media or places they've heard through antiquity from, Africa with the pyramids or Asia, et cetera, different places. And a couple, voices and places were sounded out. The guy said, no, the most talent resides in the grave because most people never take the guts to step out and unleash what's in them. Don't let that be you. So we're here tonight to give you some tools, to encourage you, to help you get to that place that you want to go. Does that sound like a pretty good deal? Well, excellent. Without any further ado, I present to some and introduce to others the Nick Dillon.
I'll stand up just a little bit. One of the things I told the crew here as we were preparing for this evening was that it's going to take everything in me to be still in this chair tonight because I'm so used to moving around and so used to jumping around and being in front of a group that I'm doing double focusing, which is okay, but it's all good. But I just want to again thank everyone for your continued support, not only for this vision of mine that I've had, and each year it gets bigger and greater and better, and I often say as we do this each and every year, our whole objective is to pour into you. And so today we're doing it a little different where we're going to go down this path. And if everyone has a program here, you'll see here we got hot topics. And our hot topics that we're going to cover here are how you show up, personal acceptance, overcoming fear, and successful leadership. Our theme this year centers around this whole mindset of maximizing your potential for success. And what we really want you to be thinking about is really reflecting for the entire evening as we take the deep dive into these 4 areas to really cultivate your mind and help, raise your level of consciousness to just think differently about what your potential is from today. Okay? Because my philosophy is if we're green, we're what? Growing. And if we're ripe, what are we doing? If we're ripe, we no longer can get any riper. So we got to always constantly be thinking about growth, development, potential. Okay? So strap on your seat belts. Everyone, if you got one of the little baggies, you got a little bitty notebook. Feel free to take that notebook out because we're going to give you a ton of nuggets to chew on. And our objective tonight is for interaction. So we'll have some discussion. We'll have some polls. We're welcoming you for questions as we go through our hot topics. And we'll share. We'll give you some suggestions and recommendations, but we welcome your questions. So we'll have question and answer in the end, but we're not designed today to wait until the end. So if the question, if the engagement, if you want to share an example, we encourage you to do that throughout this evening because your question may be a question that your neighbor sitting next to you has, but they just don't want to ask it. And so there is no bad question today because we're all here to share and help. Okay? Is that fair? Yes. Everybody ready? Yes. More importantly, I got this prize wheel here. And I got a whole bunch of gifts I want to give away. Oh, see that? See, we perk up for gift. So this little baby's going. Okay, so some 12 lucky folks in here are going home with this stuff. Okay, so we're going to kick off with our first hot topic. And as you look at your program, what's the first hot topic?
How do you show up?
Say that again.
How do you show up?
Okay, Tina.
Well, you know what? That's a very good question. How do you show up? How do you show up in life? How do you show up in spaces of work, in your relationships, your educational environment? How do you show up? When they see you, what do they see? What do they notice? What are you presenting? I want you to think about that. How do I show up? This evening's conversation will be led with 5 questions that I want you to just ponder on as you're pondering on that question. How do I show up? How do I show up in life? Am I an active participant? Or am I just letting life happen? Where are you? Where have you been for the last 20 years? How have you been showing up for the last 25 years? How did you show up yesterday? Let's bring it even forward. How did you show up a half an hour ago? Yeah. So the 5 questions that we're going to use in this conversation is, where are you showing up? And how do you show up? What keeps you from showing up? What does it mean to show up for you? And where in life can't you show up? I'll let you think on that one. So we talked about how you're showing up. So think of this as we're going to bring you to, this is like the view or Oprah show, and you are like our interactive audience, and we're sitting at the table having that conversation around, those topics that are like important to us. And so we're going to throw it out there, and we're going to jump in, and you can jump in and just jump in mentally. Like, open your mind, like be a parachute that opens up to receive everything in this conversation. So it's what you do when you think about it. It's not so much what I do for you, but when I plant that seed, how do you let that seed germinate in you? And what is the fruit that comes as a result of it? So are you showing up in life? Where are you showing up in life? Physically. Physically, health-wise, gym membership. Yeah, I just noticed that they took $20 out of our account, and I haven't showed up. I haven't showed up in a couple of months. You're shaking your head. Yeah, I identify with that. I should have been the owner of Planet Fitness or Blast Fitness or whatever fitness that had all those memberships that are just being deducted and collecting that money. But yeah, that's how I've been showing up physically lately. I haven't been showing up. An open heart. You show up with an open heart. Sometimes we find ourselves in spaces that, things in the past causes us to close our heart to one another. That offense that I had with my brother, my sister, sometimes I close my heart. I don't show up with my heart open. Can you think of the last time that you closed your heart and said, they deserve to not get that piece of me? An open mind. What about having an open mind? Just shutting down, not being open to hear what someone has to say about a situation. You just shut down. Like that parachute I said, open it up. The best way you can get something is you open it up like a parachute. And having that positive attitude. So where are some places that we show up? Look at your neighbor. Tell your neighbor, turn to your neighbor and tell your neighbor where are some places you show up. Yeah, I hear it. I'm hearing relationships. Relationships at work. That coworker. Yeah, that one coworker. Or that sibling. Or those cousins. Or them over there. That's the other part of the family.
Or parents.
Or parents, yeah. What are some things where do you show up? Raise your hand, share with me. Audience participation. Where do you show up? Work, yeah. Church, yes. Yeah, someone said, I don't want to go to church because I can't deal with them. Having that open heart or that open mind. Or that in the workplace. Having that coworker that, I just had an argument with that person. And I can't seem to close it up. School. How many of us are in school? I'm still in school. Yeah, showing up in school. How do you show up? What do people see when you show up? Job. And going back to the health. So when you think about it, you talk about those places that you show up in. What are some things that cause you not to show up? When you think about it, when you're not mindful of something, like you're not conscious of showing up. Like, how do I show up? How do I just arrive? Am I just there? Do I participate in it actively? One of the things that stop us is resistance. Resistance stops us from showing up. It stops us from accomplishing those things that we want in life. Business success, having a business that is thriving. And when you're in pursuit of a business, they say it takes 5 years to get a business going. And sometimes, what is the percentage? Do you know the percentage?
9 out of 10 fail.
9 out of 10 fail.
Why do you think that is? They don't what? They don't think long term. What else? Not prepared. Instant gratification. What else?
Patience.
Yes.
That's huge.
Ooh.
Patience. They don't want to put in the work. Money.
Money. Someone said they don't believe.
Right.
Ooh.
9 out of 10 don't believe that they would be successful in the first place. That's huge. So if you don't believe that you would be successful in the first place, then that affects how you show up.
Mm-hmm.
There's a look of, I'm not going to get the business. Unconsciously or consciously. You give a look off. If you really want something, I'll give you the best example. We were having some dialogue as we prepared for this today. The best example, and Tina brought up, have any of us in here ever went on a date? You all did.
Or that first date, that very first date.
First date or a date. So you prepared for that. You didn't go scraggly.
That even sounds funny, scraggly.
Scraggly.
Yeah.
You showed up. Why? Because you wanted to do what? Impress. What did somebody say?
It's PG in here. Thank you, PG.
Okay? We wanted to impress. You're giving off something. And so it matters. I mean, this is big. When you really think about how you show up, show of hands. This is Thursday. Did everybody work? Who all, show of hands if you work today? Most of you. So it's Thursday. Show of hands if you bought the best you Monday through Thursday. Okay, now I don't have but a few. Okay?
A few hands.
So you know what that tells us is you're showing up differently. Mm-hmm. Because if we're talking about successful, we're talking about being successful, part of success means consistency. Mm-hmm. Part of success means really being consistent at your best. Why? Because whether you know it or not, someone's watching you. Okay? Someone's watching you. Someone's paying attention to you, and they're defining their success based on how you show up. And as I just gauged the audience, I saw maybe 5 hands showed up the best that they got Monday through Thursday. So the other 98% of y'all, and I'm hoping my live streamers are showing up as well, are not showing up the best that you can be. And guess what? As Tina just indicated, there's a reason why. There's a reason why. Show of hands if everyone wants to live a successful life. Well, 98% of y'all might as well put your hand down. Why? Because you're not bringing the best you every day. You're not bringing the best you every day. And part of showing up means if I want to be successful, I need to consistently do that. I often tell people I'm a licensed therapist. Can I have a bad day? Can I have a day I don't bring the best me? Why? Someone depends on me. So are you telling me that when you go to your job or your business or you engage your partner in a relationship, they're not dependent on you? Just food for thought.
How many of you are in management? I just jumping on there. How many of you are in management? Okay, management leaders. Yeah, when you're thinking about people not showing up, those relationships, as you were bouncing off of that, you talked about business, but work relationships. When people don't show up fully and be the best that they can, and they're operating in their full self. When I talk about full self, like being professional, even in the workspace, walking in a space of like love, like love a concept that doesn't exist in the workplace. Showing up with love, showing up with a smile. There's a gentleman that says to me, says, Tina, thank you for smiling every day. I look forward to your smile every single day. How many of you wake up, or even Sunday night, you're dreading that Monday morning going to work? How does your attitude shift? Yes.
So you mean to tell me Sunday, y'all preparing not to show up Monday? Because that's really what you're saying. I'm going to dress up. I'm going to dress up, meaning I'm going to put some clothes on, and I'm going to make sure my face is washed and clean up, brush my hair, comb my hair, do everything. But I'm going to show up not the best me. Why? Because what? I'm not happy. I don't like what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. Whatever the case is. So you not showing up for you, because essentially that's why you show up, not for anyone else.
That's right.
Does what for you? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because, and I'll say this, I was one of those folks in corporate America that said, have my money in the bank on the 15th and the 30th.
Well, I still say.
Show me the money.
Because I was showing up not wanting to be there. Right. And showing up not wanting to be there affected my interaction, affected my mood, affected my work performance. Now, what's interesting is when you show up that way, we show up that way, and then when promotions happen and raises happen, we sitting here going, why? Well, I thought, and we never reflect on, well, how have I showed up? What have I actually done? I want to just give you a real quick lesson here, if I can, on what is called frame of reference, which has a direct correlation to how you show up. So every last one of us in here have a unique frame of reference, and we operate in that. Okay? Your frame of reference is what happened an hour before you got here, last night, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever. It is part of your upbringing, your environment, your relationships, who's your support system, your values and beliefs, your experiences up until May 21st, 2015. And believe it or not, all of that makes up who you are. So interestingly, 95% of your day, you operate in the subconscious mind based on your frame of reference. So you show up autopilot. Okay? If you've been going to work, wherever you're working and doing whatever you're doing, it's all on autopilot. Once your mind accepts whatever's been programmed in your frame of reference, that's how you show up. So some of you, guess what? You show up mean on autopilot. You show, and you don't even half know it sometimes. You show up sad, you show up disappointed, you show up angry. It's all on autopilot. Why? Because of your frame of reference. It could be an experience that you had, a relationship that went wrong, a job that you didn't get promoted on, and that sits in your subconscious. And when life happens, that's what you pull from. Because if you're not pouring in, guess what's sitting there? What's been in there? What's the frame of reference? And that's what we bring every single day. The only time you move to the conscious mind is like right now, because you don't know what I'm going to say next. Or if you were driving home tonight and a deer jumped out, you would shift instantly to the conscious mind. And if you had to go that route again, you'd be really perceptive. But otherwise, we live and operate completely subconsciously. So we need to be mindful of what we're pouring in.
In a simpler term for that is your past.
Absolutely.
A frame of reference, that's your past, everything from your past that is brought forward into your, not only your current, but it impacts how you live out your future. So like that Monday, I'm going to work on Monday. You was excited Friday. Oh, I'm gonna do all this on Friday. I got this going on. You was excited about that. But then it shifted Sunday night. It's like, oh, I gotta go to work. Big difference. And so does that serve you? It really doesn't serve you. I mean, to have those frames of reference from the past, those past conversations, you know, conversations that had been had before. And here's one for me. I went to a major networking conference, and I met this amazing gentleman that is a very successful person who edits a very successful magazine. And I showed up all, you know, excited. I'm like, hey, you're a... And he said, well, what are you here for? Well, I'm here. I want to be able to, you know, learn more about leadership, and I want to teach on that. He's like, everybody else doing that. And just that person sharing that with me brought how I showed up. And I was living in that for 4 years.
Wow.
At least. And so when it came to networking events, I just said, you know what? That same person will be present in Nick, and it will be present in Tim. And so I'm just not going to show up. I'm not going to network. And you need networking opportunities to be able to grow. I had stunted my own growth because I had that experience, and it was the past. I needed to leave that in the past. I needed to let that go. That was a conversation that I had with that person. It wasn't Nick or it wasn't Tim. And I was using that as a frame, my past, to frame my future. But that wasn't it. I had to shift it on a dime.
So how, Nick and Tina, how does an individual shift the frame of reference if they're brought into the consciousness of, hey, I'm in this particular situation, in this rut, or in this place that I'm in, and I want to come out. I don't want to have the blues when 60 Minutes comes on Sunday, because I know I'm going to be going to bed soon. I got to get up on Monday and go to work to this dungeon.
Right.
How do you keep the buoyancy of the excitement Sunday going into Monday, or getting over that dream killer that you met at the networking conference? How do you get past that?
So really, it starts with first just being mindful of how you show up. So we put this out here, and so when you find yourself in situations where your thinking starts to be and become a way that you don't want to be, recognize that it's not the person you're dealing with, it's not the situation or circumstance you're dealing with, it's you. I do a lot of change management training with different leaders and organizations, and life's going to continue to happen, change is going to continue to happen. What can I control? How I respond to it.
Or your interpretation of it.
Absolutely. So you see this on the screen. We're carrying this every single day. And interestingly, we carry the we keep the baggage, the bad and the negativity with us. Show of hands if you've got a group of friends that you hang out with and there's at least one that's always negative. But we keep them. We bring them along for the ride. Well, that's not helping you, because soon you're going to show up just like that. So we got to be willing. It's work, folks. And I often say what we have to do is we got to not anesthetize, which means we camouflage. We put the haze over, because it's easy for us to dress up just like we did today. When there's inner work that needs to be done, because the inner work is going to affect how you show up physically. I can put this suit on and I can be in here and I can be in front of you all talking to you and I'm hurting. And you never know. But I can anesthetize that and put the camouflage on because I'm unwilling to do the work to make life, your relationship, your business, your job, your family relevant. We have to be willing to do that work. And that work means self-care. I don't have to hail myself as an object to be judged by anyone. So we make adjustments. You may have some high standards. We should have high standards. Always be looking for growth and high standards. But what happens? If you found yourself over the years adjusting your standards to your surroundings, okay, so since Tina's not going to go to the gym, I'm not going to go either. Or since so-and-so's not going to go to school, I'm not going to go either. So we make adjustments because we want to be included. So as Tim just said, we kill the dream because nobody else in here is dreaming, so why am I dreaming? But I want you to remember, and this is key when it comes to being a successful entrepreneur, when it comes to being a successful relationship, as well as an employee working for someone. You're concerned with how you show up, but guess what? If you're working with someone, even the person sitting next to you has got to show up as well. So the competition is in you. If I'm choosing not to show up, giving my all, I can't get mad if Tina gets promoted and I don't. I can't get mad if Tim gets the contract and I don't. Or my significant other or spouse decides they're done because I'm unwilling to make adjustments to how I show up. And I want to bring the best me. If you're bringing the best you each and every day, then you never are second guessing yourself at night when you're getting ready to go to bed. But it's work. It's work.
Raise your hand if you have a story that you've carried for many years about someone in your family, yourself, or someone you work with. You can do a low raise.
And it has affected how you showed up. Just go ahead. A couple of you. It's affected how you show up. And it's not working for you.
What happened was when I first started coming to work, I was always excited, happy to be there, jolly, and that was just me every day because that's me. But one day, my boss came to me like, "You too happy. You need to stop being so happy around these people. Why are you so happy?" And I'm like, "Well, that's just me. If you can't accept me for me, then I don't need to be working here." When he was like, "Well, no, that's not it. You just too happy and you move too much." But that's me though. So I'm like, "Oh, okay." So that threw my whole spirit off. Like, okay, so I can't be me. So why should I get up, come into this work, and be the best that I can be every day when I can't be me? So I stopped being the happy person that I was at work, and I just sat at my desk all day. I didn't move. I really didn't speak to people besides my clients that came to my desk. And then he pulled me in the office again, like, "What's wrong? Why you not yourself?" I'm like, "You clearly just told me not to be myself. Now that I'm not being myself, it's a whole nother story." And so that kind of took me on a, like, I don't know. It took me in a whole nother world. Like, how do you work so hard to get to a place when they really don't accept you? It's always going to be those limitations to when you want to be yourself, you can't because you got those politics around you who doesn't accept you for who you are.
Okay. I'm going to give you just a little bit of advice. You never change you. And if you're a happy, excited, professional individual, then you need to remain a happy, excited, professional individual. And if someone doesn't like that, then that's on them, not you. And as you can see from your supervisor, they're confused. They want you happy on one end, but then when you dialed it down, they actually saw who you really were. And that's really what they want, is who you were. And so, can I be just really transparent? I'm just not going to compromise who I am for anybody.
Right. And to echo that, and I agree, you have to be your authentic self. I've been in work situations as well, getting down to just the email. I like to consider myself a pretty good communicator. And I recognize that sometimes that when you're talking to somebody in person, it's a different interpretation sometimes than when you're communicating electronically. I try to convey the same things electronically, though, that I do in person. I don't want you to misinterpret anything. So I would send different emails, and I would open the email with a greeting. Greetings, Sally. Greetings, Dave. I trust this message finds you well. And go on, because I want the communication to be such that the person feels, that they're talking to Tim McMurtry when they receive the communication. And so my immediate supervisor at that particular place of employment called me to the side and said, well, hey, Tim, your emails are, a bit too wordy. You don't really have to say all of that. You can, kind of like what Joseph, you don't have to say all of that. But what they didn't realize was I was being me. When I'm engaging someone, I want to feel welcome in their presence. I don't want to feel like you don't want to be bothered with me, because I will get away from you. And at the same time, when I'm communicating with someone, I want them to feel welcome in my presence. But I refuse to change the way I communicate it, because the best way I can perform the best is to give you the authentic Tim. I can't give you Nick. I can't give you Tina. I can't give you Dave. If you want them, you got to go get Dave or Nick. But I can give you the fullness of who Tim is. And if you don't like that, that's your problem and not mine. Now, if it comes to the point to where your job is at risk because you're too happy, you may have to finesse, your expressions of joviality, but you still don't change the core of who you are, because you still have to live with you 24/7. When you punch the clock and go out the rest of your day, you're still with you. And so you want to be able to have a clean conscience that in all my interactions, I was true to myself, even in the workplace.
Absolutely. Because you don't want to make adjustments in who you are, especially if it becomes detrimental to you. Because I will tell you, I know individuals who work 10, 20, 30 years in a place, showing up bad, compromising who they are to end up with health problems, end up with, because it's going to eventually hit you physiologically. So you've got to be true to who you are, within reason. I mean, we all know that, professional and things of that nature, but you should be able to still be who you are as an individual and not have to compromise that.
See, here's the real thing. That's what's happening is that when you see something in somebody else that you just do not like, or that is almost repulsive, it's really not them. It's really you. You did the thumb. It's really you. There's an examination that we have to take of ourselves to say, what is it in me that is really just causing that to trigger whatever that is? We were talking about that past. What is in your past that reminds you, that person reminds you of something in the past? There's a trigger going on.
Right.
It's generally not them. And if you look at your own supervisor, if you did some digging and we got to the core of what was really going on, he's got a deeper problem that needs to be unpacked.
Right. But if we're not careful, we succumb to that. So, you got to go to work tomorrow? I want to see, take the picture, put a little video on Facebook.
Right.
Smiling, grinning, showing up.
Right. And tell them we said, shut up. You don't have to say that.
Because when you don't show up as who you are, you've been inauthentic.
Right.
You're not true to yourself. To thine own self, be true.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank
Yes,
you,
sir.
guys.
You're welcome.
As we're waiting for the mic to come down, it's just something to remember. What you resist, persist. What are you resisting in your life? Notice it keeps coming up. What you don't deal with, it keeps coming up. Okay,
ahead.
so him and then.
Okay, I just had a general comment in terms of first young lady. A lot of times we have to learn how to be multicultural, and we're dealing with corporate culture. So from what she was saying, it sounded like, for example, the supervisor might have been saying, okay, calm it down a little bit, but the essence might have been, you're out of your seat too much. So you may have to have a good colleague that you can kind of bounce things across in the workplace that will give you some good, honest feedback and kind of let you know when you're out of order. Like for example, with me, I have somebody that's like, tell me if I need to get my desk clean. I'm not gonna leave today unless it's clean, So you have to have a reminder. And then the second thing, for Pastor Tim, the element with the email. So as you notice, individuals, especially in management, so the higher you go with management, the shorter the email, the better you get a response. Because a lot of times we're thinking, if I give them, 5 paragraphs, don't know about the whole situation, it's all worked out, nothing's missing. And they're like, I'm not gonna read any of that. So it's a matter of just kind of getting familiar with that organization and then seeing how that works for you. I always welcome a good greeting, though.
Right.
So,
And he made a really good point. The thing is that what you don't want to compromise is the essence of you. So I don't want you to lose the fiery essence of who you are.
It's a balance.
It's a balance.
When he was talking about having to adapt to our surroundings, I worked in the federal courts for 20 years, and I worked for just about every judge in that court. And every judge had their own way of doing things.
Yeah.
I never lost the essence of who I was, but when I walked into that courtroom, I became who they needed me to become to get the work done. I was a representative of them, and it was my job to make them look great. And so I served those judges to the best of my ability, making sure that the essence of who I was came through, but it was what that person needed from me at that time. And when I left the federal courts, I left on my own. I left a great job to come home and be with my kids, but I enjoyed every day of those 20 years. I got up out of bed looking forward to going to that job.
Good deal.
But it's because I was who I was, but I was still able to adapt to my surroundings and serve the people well.
Absolutely.
And they weren't all easy,
You're right.
No.
but I made the best of it, and I adapted to the surroundings.
Yes. Thank you. Way in the back there.
As he's taking the mic, I had these little thoughts that I have. How you do anything is how you do everything. Something to think about. She said every day wasn't good, but it was good because she brought who she was, the essence of who she was.
Okay. So, are we going to show up different tomorrow? That didn't even sound motivated.
That wasn't too enthusiastic.
Look, that sounds like you're going to show up like you showed up today.
Right. The points that were made were talking about being your authentic self and being able to at the same time make adjustments to the environment. So you have to be able to do both of them and not feel that you have, like it's a zero-sum game. You have to give up one for the other. So that was just really good advice that was shared. So that was rich, very rich.
Can I transition for you?
Please transition.
Results of success for showing up. When you show up in your business, you generate income. When you show up to the gym, you get fit. When you show up to the grocery store with a healthy list, you get a healthy grocery basket of healthy foods. When you show up in relationships, you have time with your family and the significant people in your life. When you show up in your spiritual practice, you read, meditate, and gather more for your spiritual being. When you show up in your success, you make decisions, you set goals, and you commit to those things that are important to you. When you show up giving, you volunteer, you help others. You show up for opportunities. Things happen, such as a book, starting a business, creating a website. And finally, when you show up in your growth, you invest in good training. So you've showed up today, and you're here with us today, and we are excited, and we're going to shift now that if you don't show up, there is going to be a cost to your personal acceptance, overcoming your fear, and then ultimately stepping into your leadership. Thank you,
Great.
ladies and gentlemen.
Awesome. Thank you. So as we move from showing up to personal acceptance, I have this little phrase on the side on the screen. born right the first time, which means how you show up around personal acceptance matters. Accepting you for who you are matters. The challenge that we have in showing up, and a lot of times, is we don't and are uncomfortable with personal acceptance. We're not comfortable with who we are. We're not comfortable in our own skin. We're living the life that somebody else wants us to live. We're living that life of what we see on TV and in magazines and on the internet, which is not who we are. And in an age of social media the way it is now, we rely heavily on others accepting us versus us simply accepting ourselves. Everything's going to always start and go back to you, who you are, and owning who you are, whatever you are, okay? Whatever flaws, whatever you feel you have, you need to own that and be okay with it, comfortable in your own skin. And I often share this story around personal acceptance because it's really big for me, because I can remember a time in my life when this was a struggle for me. And, you know, I've had some health challenges over the years, and technology has made the managing it a whole lot better. But there was a time in my life where personal acceptance was bad. And I was teased, I was bullied, I was called names, and I believed that because I didn't believe in myself. And so that's what I owned. Whatever names were called, whoever picked on me, whatever they said, that's how I showed up. And when you talk about self-image, it was zero. When you talk about self-esteem, none. But I had to do a whole lot of work in me to be comfortable in recognizing ultimately whose I was, and then moving in a space of just being okay and comfortable in my own skin. Because when you get to that space of personal acceptance, then it doesn't matter if Tina doesn't like me, because I like me.
Come on now.
It doesn't matter if Tim doesn't love me, because I love me.
Tell it.
At the end of the day, you always know that you're no longer alone. But it takes a lot to be able to sit in yourself and have to deal with yourself and not make any adjustments to who you are for the sake of being liked, for the sake of being included, for the sake of anything. And that means I got to be so okay with myself and trust that process that even moving in the state of vulnerability, because I was there, I got to trust that if I'm going to be okay with myself and I build on that, I'm going to come out better in the end. Yes.
Hi, my name's Christina. I wanted to tie in the two topics that we've touched on so far because it's really kind of hitting home right now. Had some big luggage, and it was time to stop the pity party. And I realized I didn't even know how to get back to who I really was. Like, you talk about be your authentic self. Well, sometimes you've been hanging out in that baggage zone for so long, you don't even know what the authentic self looks like anymore. And when you're talking about this personal acceptance, you get older as all that time goes by, right? And so who am I really now, and how am I really going to live to find that now? And it's been kind of like a 2-year journey of finding that, but it's been a lot of fun to figure it out. So we've been talking about it and saying, you know, it's about showing up, it's about being authentic, but after a while it starts to become really what you do.
Absolutely.
And it's not as hard anymore.
Absolutely.
And that's what I wanted to say.
You're right. Thank you.
Excellent.
And you're right.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for sharing. As you trust the process, it does become easier. As I trust the process, it became easier for me. If none of y'all in here like me, I'm cool.
Right.
I'm still gonna go home loving me some Nick.
Yeah. And I think the powerful part about that is you have to remind yourself of who you are. And if you've gone down, I'll say, a whole so far, I'm going to venture to say that there are still some remnants of who you are that you can hold on to as you climb out. Yes, ma'am.
And as you climb out, it's kind of important to remember that you were there.
Right,
Because
right.
it's still part of your authentic self.
Exactly.
To keep it going.
Right.
Exactly.
Learn something.
Right.
There was the reason why it's so significant is because we're impressionable. Like you talked about, the imprint of that can still remain, but it can become scar tissue as opposed to a debilitating wound as you move forward. Remember when I was in college, I got my first kind of real piece of, wait a minute, man, others can really impact me if I allow them to. I know you get to college and, you know, you have different folks. This is before I met my lovely wife, Cheryl, sitting here with all this color on in the front. Lovely lady there, boy. Isn't she lovely? Anyway, so I was in college. I went to Hampton University after graduating from high school. It's in Hampton, Virginia. And we were hanging out, you know, a couple of guys, and there were some young ladies that were, you know, by, I think it was the Virginia Cleveland dormitory. That was the name of the dormitory.
You
And-
see, he done set it up, Cheryl. So go ahead on.
And so Hampton University, it sits on the Chesapeake Bay. So it was beautiful, the water was glistening and all of this good stuff. And there was a young lady there that had caught my eye. And I was looking. Now, me, you know, I got a couple little quirks here and there, but that's me and I'm cool and it's worked for me up to this point, so I'm gonna go with it. So I was waiting for the opportunity to catch eyes with her, you know, eyes. And I caught eyes with her and I just mouthed to her, you know, I like you. You know, I like, you know. Now this says everybody has a go-to move. You know, one of my go-to moves. And some of you ladies, y'all got the black dress, the one that always worked, you know. It was the red, somebody said the red dress, exactly. So you have the go-to thing that you always go to. So that was one of my go-to moves. And, you know, didn't get a reaction, but that was cool because it was planting of a seed. You know, you plant, then you harvest. So that was set up cool. So a couple of days later, we were over in one of the guys' dormitories, Harkness Hall, and we were, you know, in there shooting pool. So one of my guys comes in talking to one of the other guys. I'm just kind of ear hustling on their conversation. You know, we're all in here together. He says, yeah, man, my guy, I think his name was Kwame from Philadelphia. Kwame, man, was telling me that his girl was out the other day with a group of young ladies out in front of the dorm, and there was this guy that was mouthing something to her. And I'm just, you know, poker face. No, they're talking about me, you know. Mouthing something to her, like, you know, I like you. It was like some weird guy. She called me weird, y'all. I was a weirdo to her. Here's the impact. After I heard that, it hurt me, because I'm not weird, I'm cool. What you talking about? So I went back to the dorm, and I think I skipped like the next 2 days of classes because I didn't want to be walking around campus. There go that weird dude right there. There you go right there. But it had impacted me. So one of my guys, Darren Jackson from Woodbridge, Virginia, he was like, he called me Timmis in college. Timmis, what's up, man? What just? I said, oh, man, she called me weird, man. Man, I just, you know, just. He was like, man, come on. So I finally snapped out of it. My point is that I made up my mind right then and there. I'll never let someone else dictate to me who I am anymore. So some of that personal acceptance, some of the challenge is you've been told some things about you from somebody else.
Absolutely.
A parent, a loved one, a significant other, and maybe you've made a mistake that you thought was unrecoverable. But you can recover.
Yep.
You have to accept the fact that, hey, I did that happened to me. It's not going to keep me in bondage. It has to be a personal decision that you have to make. And as Christina stated, you can climb out and the journey becomes fun. It can be a little challenging and intimidating at first, like, oh man, can I really do this? But as you begin to climb out, it becomes fun and it becomes what you do and who you are.
Absolutely.
That personal acceptance.
Go ahead.
And you have to know that there's no destination. This is like a discovery like you said, it's like fun, like an inquiry, like exploration, like Dora the Explorer, just navigating and learning these new spaces and places about yourself.
This is this is where I remind you to ask yourself constantly, to tell yourself constantly, what conversations am I having to myself about myself? Because I want you to walk away with this. This can be past, as she said, and we could be bringing that bag along. But over the years, if you've got, as Tim mentioned, programs, you've been hearing it all along. Remember I said in the beginning, 95% we operate in the subconscious mind. In the conscious mind is when you hear negativity all the time, the conscious mind accepts it as truth, and then you operate and live in it, and you don't understand why. And so you got to be mindful of the conversations that you're having with yourself of stuff that you know isn't true. And a lot of times when I'm working with clients, I'll say to them, and they'll say, but Nick, I can't do X, Y, Z, or but Nick, I'm this. Why do you know? I want you to have this conversation with yourself. When you find you having challenges around just being accepting who you are, or a deficiency of anything, tell yourself, answer this question: why is that not true in 2015? So if you're saying, well, I can't go back to school, well, why not? Because you're telling yourself you're not? Always remember this: it doesn't matter what anyone says. The worst conversation is the one you're having with yourself. You got to make sure that self-talk is telling you what you want to be doing, reminding you what you've decided that you're going to do. But I will tell you, when those programs get really strong, they can become debilitating. And if you don't do work to get out of that, you will find yourself not pursuing what truly is your purpose and your passion, all based on when you unpeel the onion, something that you're telling yourself, but a program or an experience or something in life that you're basing it on why you're making a decision today. Because once you know better and someone can offer you a solution that you decide you don't want to take, insanity starts to creep in.
Okay, can we ride that wave right there? So a lot of times we find that individuals are showing up at work and they're dynamic, and then they check out when they get home, okay? And they have the personal acceptance for themselves, but there's still a dynamic going on at home. So can you just address that?
Well, the reality is that they don't have the personal acceptance. Because if you're showing up different at home, you really aren't showing up. You're showing up unauthentic at home.
Inauthentic,
It's the illusion that you're showing up good at work, but you're not. You're just anesthetizing, like I said earlier. And then you come home and you anesthetize again. So you never get to be really the authentic you.
Go ahead.
This is so awesome. So many good things being said. To what Nick was replying to this young man, it kind of went in line with what Tina just said. How you do anything is how you do everything. So somewhere, either at work or at home, you aren't being who you really are. Because who you really are will be consistent no matter what it is you're doing, whether
Absolutely.
you're in recreation, work, or, something relational. You're going to be consistent. But I also want to speak to the personal acceptance, because that had been such a huge stumbling block for myself personally. And with my husband's story, what's so critical is typically it's someone or something you value that's able to make that impression. He liked her. If it was somebody he didn't like that thought it was weird, it wouldn't have mattered. And so what has been for me an exercise to come out of that negative thinking because someone I valued, a parent or a mentor who didn't accept some of who I really was to learn to not
put anyone else's value of who I am higher than what I value of myself.
Absolutely.
And so I had to, they don't like it, but what do I like about myself? And then make that so much more of a priority than even those people that I value. And so then I began to really like who I was and appreciate who I am, the things I'm good at and what's good about me. And the people that I value didn't have the upper hand on what I thought of myself. No one thought greater of me than I did, and no one ever will.
Come on now.
And so you have to think you're great and put the value of yourself in your hands.
Right. Amen.
Yes.
All right.
You have to do that. Great point. Great point.
Yes.
You got to do that work because you make a very valid point. It can be someone or an experience so strong that is impressionable to you, that you value, that you look up to. And that can be so strong that it does hold you mentally and emotionally hostage. So what happens is you live years of showing up not who you really want to be. And we suppress who we are so that we show up to please whoever or whatever they said we were supposed to be. And it's really not serving us today. And when we have that aha moment, as you said you did, you get so much better. Life gets so much better. But you have to be willing to be able to do that. You got to be willing to be able to do that. Because it's tough. It is tough.
It is tough, and I just, that's so powerful. I'm at the point where there's chills going on because this is so deep, because when we think about the stories that are in our head, we don't even realize the conversation that exists in our head because it's so there. And it's not until somebody help you break that cycle, bring light to it, expose it, to show you that, see, like, if I don't know what my hand is doing. I know because I'm feeling it, but sometimes all the times, the blind spots, that's what a coach does for you. We help you see those blind spots, to see those things that you don't necessarily see, to break those stories that you've been telling yourself because of something somebody said years ago, be it a teacher, be it a counselor, be it a friend. Somebody said something that altered who you were destined to be. And so we find ourselves living in this minimal place instead of this maximum, maximizing who we are designed to be.
Absolutely.
And what happens is we live this inauthentic life. I'm here this way, and no, you're right. I see your hand. You live this inauthentic life where you're trying to shift for everybody, and you become like a puppet. And at the end of the story, the dash between 1967 and 2057 or whatever, what happened in your dash? Did you live your best life? Did you leave here empty? One of my mentors, oh my God, Miles Monroe, my mentor. I was blown away when I found out that he died in a plane crash. And he wrote constantly about leaving this earth empty. What's in your container that somebody has put a lid on, that your thinking or your brain or your thoughts tell you this,
Right.
and you can't break beyond that?
Right.
What is that?
And I want us to think, I'm going to use this analogy. So this is a cup of water. And I needed to look a little better than this, so I'm going to add some more water to it. Okay. So this is a cup of water. And as you look at this cup of water, this is not the glass half full analogy, but this is a cup of water. So it has something in it. But where I want you to remember is that it's not full. So sometimes this can be your life. And we can find ourselves trying to give out of here when we still need. So working on ourselves and doing that inner work helps to fill the glass up. Then it starts to overflowing. When you find that you've done that work and you've worked on yourself and you get comfortable in that space of who you are, and you ultimately show up maximizing who you are, then you can. Then this is overflowing. But as long as it's half full, or in some cases even less than this, you need to do some inner work. And yeah, you got some in here you can give and do whatever, but you're not giving the best you. Why? Because you need more yourself. And so we got to remember that when it comes to things like this stuff can really take from yourself. It can take from yourself. But we got to never question who we are, and really own that. If you're here for a purpose. Every 24 hours you wake up knowing you're here for a purpose. And let nobody move you off your intentions for that day. I tell people all the time, don't give away your own personal power. So when I hear, well, she said and I did, no, you gave away your personal power because you control you.
That's right.
But it's all in how you see yourself. It's all in how you view and see yourself. And don't give anyone power over you. Once you recognize it, in my book I wrote, Who Do You Think You Are? The Power of Believing Yourself, was really around this. I talk about that frame of reference because how many of us have heard, you act like your dad, or you remind me of your grandma in some cases, or your uncle in some cases, you never knew him. Well, you got to understand who you are so that going forward you move into the space of, now it's my choice. So I'm not having a pity party no more today because it's my choice to. So I'm not saying this bad person anymore because I know I'm not. I'm not saying I'm not smart anymore because I know that's foolishness. I'm not saying I'm not handsome anymore because that's foolishness. I'm not saying I'm not beautiful anymore because that's foolishness. But if you still find yourself having that conversation, your cup is empty. You need to pour into you.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I just want to ask, as you're trying to find yourself and you're in a vulnerable position, how do you sift information from teachers? Because, some of the information is kind of, is quality information. So how do you say, okay, this is me, and this is them trying to help me, and maybe this is something they're not recognizing properly?
Okay. So
Great question.
Great question. And what I would say is, especially as a youngster, sometimes you may have to provide clarity. So if you're seeking advice or you're getting advice and you're hearing something, and if it doesn't look and sound like what you want to hear, it's good to take that answer that you got to a parent, to a loved one, to a mentor, someone that you really value their opinion for you, and ask them, hey, I got this and I didn't know how to interpret that. And a lot of times it may be a situation where they'll try to explain or give you clarity around it, but the best thing you can do is have a one-on-one conversation with them and really explain and articulate yourself so that the takeaway that you get is actually what you want to get, okay? Because there are people that are going to give you advice. Sometimes it's going to be good, sometimes it's going to be bad. And you're going to have to decipher as you continue to grow older, which do I want to listen to? And so and that's going to be an ongoing journey. I'm 47 years old, and there's people out there telling me to do X, Y, and Z, and it's foolishness. So I'm saying, okay, won't be listening to you anymore. I need to stick with over here. And always remember this, and I'll let you comment on this, Tim, is and this is a life lesson for everyone. People can only take you as far as they've been. So if they haven't been where I want to go, why am I still listening to them? Why am I getting advice from them? They can't help me. Anyone can only take you as high as they've been. So you got to kind of be perceptive of that. If you find that they're circling a wagon or someplace that you've been already and they're recycling that same advice again, you need to shift and be seeking somewhere else.
Yeah, I think as a dovetail to that response, as you are, don't be afraid to ask further questions. I've been in situations before where I went to a trusted advisor and asked them something, looking for some direction. And what they gave me didn't really move the needle for me at all. I still was at the place that I was in. So one, be willing to ask the next question. And what helps to get an answer is a question. So being willing to ask questions, to drill down as best you can to get to the answer. And if you still, after 15 minutes, I'm still kind of confused about this particular instance, you can go ahead and move on or take whatever they've given you, as Nick said, to a parent or some other trusted person in your life. The other thing that you have and you will continue to develop as you continue to grow in age is you will have instinct and a personal intuition, dare I say the Holy Spirit, as people are telling you things, because there's something in you that bubbled up that caused you or compelled you to ask the question in the first place. There's a yearning that's there. You will know if, okay, bam, thank you for that piece of advice. It'll just resonate with something on the inside of you.
It will inspire you.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
If that doesn't happen, that doesn't necessarily always mean that advice they gave you wasn't, good advice. It just might not have the precision of the advice that you need for that particular instance. So trust your instinct as well, and that will continue to develop, and you will know, because it'll be an illumination that will come to you. That's okay, bam, thanks for that. You will know the difference between thanks for that and I. You'll know the difference. But the question piece, and how does it feel to you on the inside based on what you've heard?
You've been sitting and listening and actively just being present here. You showed up. What I want you to do is I want you to take a reflective moment. We're going to really give it like a 60-second, a 90-second reflection. What are you taking in? What is present for you now? We've had 2 topics. What's there for you? Take a moment, reflect. What would you tell yourself, or what would you write down to keep you going when you leave here?
Starting now. 90 seconds.
Yeah, we can. Who wants to share just a reflection? Okay.
I'm really enjoying all of this. But what keeps resonating, in my mind and my heart is that all of this is awesome. It's great. But I think that a lot of people are stuck, not just in their mind, but in their physical environments, so what about the people that are stuck in their marriage? So it's hard to break free, even stuck in their families, like mom didn't really think a whole lot about them. Daddy didn't think a whole lot about them. I know we kind of tapped on this a little bit, but they're still part of their everyday surroundings. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to escape away in my prayer closet or escape away, to the beach and just to relax and meditate. But then I still got to come home to these people that are constantly grating at me, even though they're trying to get better because, see, they're broken. The husband's broken. So I don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater because I love my mom, I love my daddy, but they're really kind of toxic for me. So see, this is the part that I'm kind of having a problem, with, because I know this is where a lot of people are at.
Okay. Okay, so here's where I want to just touch a little bit on that. And again, I'm going to be transparent. and I've said this before, I really don't discriminate when it comes to my self-care. So that means if mama is bringing me negativity, I'm having that conversation with mama. And I'm saying, mama, this ain't working. That's me. That's where I am in 2015. So I would answer your question is that what it boils down to is you got to get so comfortable with yourself that you are okay making the courageous conversation or courageous decision to that it is about you, because in that case self-care is. And if a relationship means something to us, then we will communicate, then we will say and we will express, and we will not be fearful around that. You know, the challenges and the sad thing is and it's systemic sometimes in the community, is that we are unwilling to have the courageous conversations when it comes truly to self-care, that stuff wasn't done right. Stuff is not being done right. But no one wants to say anything. But we got to be willing, someone has to be willing to be the courageous individual that says, you know what, the dysfunction stops with me. So going forward, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And if you make the determination yourself and you stay consistent in that now, consistent, then it may perhaps wear off on someone else. It may wear off on a family member. It may wear off on a mother, father, sister, brother, or whatever. But you got to be determined. You can't be up and down, because all that does is send mixed messages. You got to be so rock solid on your beliefs. And I talk about belief systems. Your belief system is how you function each and every day. And your belief systems is what you pull on in time of trouble and crisis. And it's all in what has been programmed up here. But if you said, like, if you've been beat down, then all you can work with is beat down. That's why we got to do the self-work, folks. That's why we got to always be about growth and development. The only way you get better is you continue to work on yourself. It's not about what everybody else is doing and it's not even about how the environment is, because for some of us, we can't do anything about the environment now. So I got to find peace in the storm.
Right.
And keep it moving.
Right. I mean, and you mentioned just to go spiritual with it. I mean, certain things I don't think one will be able to get through without God, quite frankly. And just as, you know, an associate pastor of a church, I mean, the strength of my life has been really Jesus. I mean, quite frankly. I mean, we look at scriptures in the Bible, you know, I'll get to my personal life in just a second, but even in the Bible, there's some interesting things that take place, particularly in the realm of being in a storm. And Jesus told the disciples, hey, get into this boat, go to the other side, man, and we're going to do our thing. They were going to the other side, and the wind became boisterous, and a big storm came, and gale force winds. It was a sucky situation. They came to Jesus saying, hey, man, wake up. Don't you see we're about to die? Get up. No, you Jesus and all, but we about to die, player. Get your behind up and save us. His response to them, he didn't have no pity on them. He didn't say, well, guys, I understand that, you know, if it wasn't such a tough storm, if it wasn't Hurricane Katrina out here, I could understand why you could have confidence. But since this is a gale force wind you're dealing with, I understand I'm going to take care of it. That's not what he said. He said, why are you so fearful? Where is your faith? So there was an expectation, even going through hell, that you have to be able to stand up and be firm and still be who you are. The 3 Hebrew boys was put in the fire. God didn't say, them my boys, blow that fire out. No, burn them. They was put in the flame. How many of you ever barbecued before? Barbecue, you smell like barbecue smoke, just barbecuing, not even being on the grill. They were in the fire and did not get burned. So when you are going through a hellish situation in the marriage, in the home, toxicity everywhere, somewhere in there, you're going to have to find some grounding. Okay, I'm going to keep my sanity in this until I can get out. and I'm looking for a way out the whole time I'm here. That's how it is. Now, for some, it could be an immediate change. Others, it might be a minute. You're going to have to gird up your loins, put on your big girl drawers, big boy drawers, and be in there until you can get out. Don't let it consume you. That don't mean it ain't going to be sucky. It sucks. What you see is what it is. But you don't have to let it overtake you because you have the ability to determine your destiny, not the next man.
Absolutely.
And that's what you have to do. You know what I'm saying? The attitude has to be pit bullish. You ain't taking me out. How do I get out of this? How do I get out of this? And back to Nick's point, because if it's close relations, well, I know it's toxic, but that's mama though. Oh, but that's daddy though. I would do this, but they need me to still. No. Quit. There ain't no excuse. If it's that bad for you, you're going to have to bounce. Well, what about them? What about them? You know what I'm saying? On that tip, going back to Jesus, they say, hey, Jesus, your mom and your brothers and stuff are out there. He said, who is my mama and my brother? These folks around here that I have a relationship with. This is my family. They didn't let his mama in. Your mama out there trying to get into the theater. Oh, okay. Too bad for Miss Mary. She ain't coming in. So those are the kind of things. When we get to that real meaty, chunky, grimy stuff, we have to be grimy mentally, not to get in the gutter, but to be resolute in you're not taking me out. Because you can't. If I don't give in to you, it's going to be tough. Okay, it's tough. So if you got the crawl, if you got the scrape, if you got the limp then. Just don't allow it to take you out.
Absolutely.
And that's why you deal with that.
That's showing up.
That's showing up.
You got to consistently
show out, to blow up.
Show up. Yes. Her and then her, real quick.
Excuse me.
Okay, I'm gonna need you to move a little quicker, scholarship guy. Come on.
When Pastor Tim was talking, everything in life is a season. Nothing is permanent. We are transitioning from season to season consistently. If there's one thing that we are guaranteed is that things are going to change. And in the worst season, the most difficult season, the thing is to keep going. Don't get stuck.
Absolutely.
Don't quit. You just keep going and doing what you can do to change the situation and know that it is going to change. It is not going to stay the same. And so, people that look like they live this great life, I will guarantee you, people can look at me and they think that I've lived a charmed life. I've lived some stuff in 47 years, but I have not quit. And that everything is a season. Keep going, keep turning that wheel, and as long as you keep turning that wheel and you keep the right mindset, you don't let anybody stop you.
Absolutely.
You're going to get to the next season.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, my reflection is just being consistent and diligent with how I show up and not concerning myself with what other people think of me because I know who I am and whose I am.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome.
Amen.
We're gonna move into Tim's topic here.
We're not done yet.
Overcoming fear. We still got more nuggets for you.
And in deference to time, I'm going to kind of blow through this. I know we had told you guys 8:30 we were going to kind of close it off, but we was just playing. We're kidding. So just a couple quick things. I mean, I think that it all ties in with what we've discussed thus far, but I think one of the main ingredients that keeps people from going from point A to point B is fear. And we have this box thinking sometimes. You have the fear of failure, you have the comfort zone, you have inferiority complex, and unrecognized resources. And each of those serves as a wall on the box. So the fear piece is significant in that fear is a force. It's unseen, but it's a spirit. It's contaminated belief or faith. If you ever had, let's say, a near accident, or somebody jumped out and scared you, or you were at the desk working, somebody came in saying, hey, they were there, and you kind of jump, you don't go to your head, but oh my God, no, it's something in here that speaks to the core of who we are. So fear is a force, And fear has descendants. So some people, it's healthy to have a little bit of fear. No, we're not supposed to have any fear at all. And if we have some, that's an area of our life that we can work on. We can fill that cup up some more. What are some of the descendants, or who are some of the descendants of fear? One, analysis paralysis, to borrow a Robert Kiyosaki term. To ponder a situation, well, hey, if I do this, I'm being led to go this way, or I'm thinking I ought to go in this direction. But what if this happened? What if that happened? I remember when Kelly them, when they did it, this happened to them. Okay? Just you going back and forth, it leads to indecision. It's analysis paralysis. Another descendant of fear is procrastination. I'm gonna do it tomorrow. I'm gonna do it next week. Well, see, I need to get prepared for this. See, now when that falls into place, then I'll go ahead and make this move. Go ahead and make the move. The other thing I think that might be the biggest challenge that we have to overcome with fear is that it often slowly drifts into worst case scenario. Well, if I do this, then that means this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen. Then before I'm gonna jump off the Himalayan mountains. You done went all off into just oblivion. All starting with the seed of fear. The other thing fear does is fear snuffs out the requisite confidence that we need to move forward in any endeavor that we have in life. So how do we overcome fear? One of the things that we do, and I'll wrap this up in the next couple of minutes, is we have to come to the knowledge of who we are. We talked about the personal acceptance. We talked about showing up. We talked about getting in tune with who we really are. I think one of the things that we often overlook is that we are, as individuals, we're magnificent. Not because of our own being or self-promotion, but we have to remember that we are created in the image and likeness of God. And while some people, don't like to get into the whole spiritual talk and all that kind of stuff, we can't ignore it. I had a close relative of mine die recently. She was 43 years old, and she died. And, hearing the news of her death was sad. And going to her funeral, I went there and I went up to the casket, and I touched her arm, and it was hard. And she looked like herself. That was her. The only difference between her and that casket and me is my spirit. Her spirit had left. Why is this important? Because fear is a spirit. And for us to adequately overcome it, we have to be sensitive to our spiritual state, because we're going to have to overcome it spiritually. Check this out. And I'm not trying to preach a sermon, but I think this is relevant and applicable right here at this point. In the Bible, it says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. So you had voidness, no shape, form, or fashion, and it was darkness. We faced darkness in our own lives, some things that were really dark. Some of the things the sister was talking about, that toxicity, that's darkness. God, as our example, didn't say, man, it sure is dark out there. He faced it head on. He went right to it. And what did he do? He said, let there be light. What's the point? Why did he start with light first? Light is symbolic of wisdom, insight, revelation. From that light, he then created the firmaments, and then the dry land appeared, and the waters came forth, and all that. That came forth first, that wisdom, that knowledge. So one of the keys to overcoming fear is to have the knowledge of what we're trying to do. It's a fear mitigator. And because God is creator, we're creators too. So sometimes you're going to face a situation, and what's the answer? You don't know the answer. Why? Because it hasn't been created yet. You're going to have to piece the ingredients together to get the solution. But you can't be afraid to go forward. You can't be afraid to go. Well, how do I not be afraid to go? It's some giants out there, to borrow a phrase from my transformation sister, the guru. You have to expect success in the endeavor. You got to expect success. Some of that means you're going to have to pump yourself up because you might not get any support. You can be in a room full of people.
Show up different.
And you're the only one that think you can pull that off. Who he think he is? The best? You have to think that about yourself. There was a book that T.D. Jakes wrote called Instinct. One of the most, get the book, Instinct, T.D. Jakes. In the book, I came across a quote, and I just want to read it for you all. Because I began to realize that, you know, I'm studying different folks and different success folks, and I found out that individuals that are high achievers, whether they're Christian or non-Christian, what successful people, regardless of color, race, creed, gender, I found out that they do a lot of self-talking. How many of y'all know who Steve Harvey is? Do you know that Steve Harvey, check this out, Steve Harvey has sayings, some even scriptures, sewn into his clothes. Wow, it takes, yeah, Steve Harvey got to talk to himself every day. You do too.
Just like we do.
So there was a guy who his name is Bob Proctor. World famous self-development expert. I was watching some stuff that he was talking about, and it just really, it was helpful because I'm trying to be the best Tim possible. And he talked about this book that he carries around. He's in his 70s or 80s, and he's been carrying the book for 40 years. So I got a little book that I carry around because it's been helpful to me. So I'm reading this book on instinct, right? T.D. Jakes. So I came across this quote. Listen to this. And this was somebody else. Just listen to what I got from instinct. It says, your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and your intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. Steve Jobs of Apple fame said that. Now we know how successful Steve Jobs. How many of y'all heard of her? Apple, iPhone, use iPhone. Yeah. He said that. So what is the point? The point is that you have to have courage as well. And what is courage? Courage, simply put, is having the guts to continue to move forward, even if you're a little nervous.
Even if you're fearful.
Even if you're fearful. That's what courage is. And you want to be able to not be stuck. Your destiny, your desire, your dream state, 90% of the time, is on the other side of that fear that you're having to be overcome. That's why it's such a challenge. Last 2 points, now be done. There was a guy who was a pilot, and he was talking about the gentleman, I forget his name, who broke the sound barrier. He said the guy got into a plane, and he had just made up in his mind. I don't know what the Mach is, Mach 12 or whatever, whatever the scientific terminology is. So the guy got into the plane, right? And he was going. And there had been some other folks that had tried to do this, but they got to a certain point and they stopped because it got kind of rocky a little bit. So some fear came, like, hold on now, this is a little bit too much. I'm close enough, So the guy got into the plane, and he did it, and he was flying, going faster and faster and faster, And he got to a point to where there was turbulence in the plane. So much so to where his controls, some of them had like little slight cracks in them. And he had in his mind a desire to kind of, I'm getting a little bit too shaky now. This is a shaky ground. Let me go ahead and stop. But he said, no, I'm going ahead with this. So after a little bit of extreme turbulence, he finally broke through the sound barrier. And once he broke through the sound barrier, there was a great calm. But he faced his fear, even when it got a little uncomfortable, and still move forward into the destiny. Now breaking the sound barriers, it's a regular thing. Right. Final piece. One of the key elements that you have to embrace, and this is straight personal. You might not be able to get rah-rah-rah'd into this. This is going to be some internal gut checking and really digging down into the depths of your soul. You have overcoming fear means you have to have a willingness to fail. Yeah. Not that you plan on failing, but if you do fail going after what you're going after, you're still okay. You don't, right, it's not over. And your acceptance of who you are doesn't have to take a dent because you didn't do it. There are one or two last questions, and we're going to go ahead and close it out because you guys have been great sports, and we don't want to just abuse the time.
Was this helpful?
Yes.
That's the first question. So, how can we serve you? Next question.
Before,
right here.
Okay, go ahead. When I first came here this evening, and I really couldn't see how to get back there, sit in the back, I figured, okay, well, I see a seat here. But then when I looked down the row, and I said, oh, my God, all my pastors are here, and the doctors, I was like, oh, my God, I have to put on my big girl clothes, and act like I got it all together. And, because I'm a leader, and I'm trying to build, leadership skills and all that, just be a force to be reckoned with. But as they got to talking, I said, oh my goodness, this is going to be one of those times where I'm not going to be able to keep it together. But the more they talked about it, the more they said, let it be okay to be who you are. I said, well, who I am, part of me getting healing and release and going to the next level is to cry. And I'm trying to embrace letting that be okay to be a crier wherever I am, because I have to go home with me. And if I don't release it where I am, then it's just going to be that much longer that I have to deal with it, because eventually I will. So anyway, I let myself do that. I let that be okay here in a room full of strangers and in a room full of people that I feel like I have to, gird up for. But I really don't, because I know them personally, and they know that I don't have to be that way. But anyway, going through, and I love games. And through this, they were talking about being authentic, and the field that I'm in, I got in because I love to play. I love arts and crafts, and I get excited about things that have to do with kids and having fun and moving and traveling and lights and colors and all of that. But when I was young, I grew up with someone who said, you have to work. You can't make money playing and having fun. And so all of my life, my adult life, I grew up suppressing who I was, thinking I had to work and work hard, and felt like I never had a work ethic because I didn't like to do what they said do. But coming here, I got a release in that I just need to find out how I can really work hard at playing hard so I can get paid for what I really enjoy doing.
All right.
And I'm like, who does that? Who gets paid to really play? The way I play.
We do.
And I'm like, I hadn't seen that, but the more I opened up my spirit to letting that be okay to say, the more it comes to me what I truly want. And so this is another step in the direction of living out my purpose and my passion, finding those other people who like to play as hard as I like to play, because I work hard at playing. And then to close up.
What was your name again?
Nicole Ivana.
Nicole, okay.
And then to close up, I wrote on this paper, because I like to play, I said, and I love to win, and I like to keep it under wraps, but I'm a hardcore winner. And on this paper, I came in, when I found out there were gifts and stuff, I said, and this always works no matter what. It says, in Jesus' name, thank you, Jesus, for my iPad mini that I win today. I wrote that on here and I wrote it on there. And then when they called my number, and I said, oh man, I missed the iPad. But then I thought what was in my truest heart of hearts was to be able to get in front of them, express what's going on so I can move to the next level, so that this iPad mini is just a little piece of, something, but what they have and what they're going to share with me is much more valuable than that. But I came here to win today, and I won.
You won.
All right.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you all so very, very, very much. So, see you all next year. Thank you all so very much. Thank you, live streamers.